I've been meaning to bring this up in a video with this series, and with me not coming up with any other cold open topics, it's as good a time as any. That I really don't understand the title of this manga. Why is the series called I Can't Choose a Childhood Friend, when he is literally choosing all of the Karens? I guess in the first chapter the charm was making you choose one, and then he goes and finds his loophole and chooses all the Karens instead. And the charm just said, oh well, you bested me. So now it's a pseudo-harem manga and he's gonna collect all the Karens like they're Pokemon. But I guess I shouldn't complain. So many manga and anime have ridiculous titles, and some of them aren't even relevant after a chapter or two. And this is just adding on the pile. Okay, rant over. I'm Moonlight150, and this is my overview of the latest I Can't Choose a Childhood Friend manga, Chapter 5, So I'll Shout It Out. So be sure to check out the link in the description below to support this new release. Now, onto the review. The chapter opens up right where we left off in the previous installment, where Himika seemed to have wandered into Shaika's room, and yes, we will be sticking with calling her Shaika because the manga still refuses to give us her nickname. Embarrassed that she was just caught by a stranger talking to her stuffed animals, she begins to go into full panic mode, where they are reminded that, yeah, the fact that another version of Karen would be living in the same house that Himika and Galka currently do. Even confirming what I said in the last video that she found a door she didn't recognize and decided to investigate. Shaika continues to panic over Himika being in her house, as Himika is just inner monologuing to herself, debating trying to explain the whole split Karen situation to her, or to leave it to you. But after a bit of pondering, Himika just couldn't bring herself to be bothered by the whole situation. And this image just perfectly describes me in most social situations. Himika decides just to get everything over with and suddenly whips out a whole tea party ensemble to talk to Shaika over some drinks. After a bit of explaining, Shaika admits she thought they were pulling her leg back at school, but after processing that phenomenon of being a bunch of splits of a singular person, Shaika's loner stance remains strong, that she has no interest in hanging out with either of the other parts of Karen. An interesting take on the whole split thing, where one part doesn't wish to be involved with the others. I don't think we see that too often in these kind of stories. As Shaika aims to take herself back to her seclusion, Himika both busts and confirms what I theorized in the last video, that they all do share the same memories, but based on their dominant personality trait, their version of reality and their memories of how they felt during certain events differ, only confirming that their pasts are all just a big ball of wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey stuff. So Himika has those same memories of those kids talking behind her back, where Himika implies that she found dealing with them to be too bothersome and ended up cutting ties with them on her own accord, rather than the self-loathing and lack of trust in people spiraling that Shaika did. What I find interesting about this setup is Himika somehow knowing that that was the event that differed between the two of them. That core memory must have had some impact on Himika too, if she was able to realize that memory is the one that affected both of them the most, even if Himika won't admit that it probably emotionally affected her too. Confronting this traumatic past starts to get to Shaika as she curls into a ball of self-hatred and regret. Leaning into just how much the same and yet different all of these sides to Karen are, Himika goes and labels Shaika as the skeptical side of Karen's personality. Boy, I hope this isn't foreshadowing her being named Skeptica or something like that. I don't know if I'll be able to accept anything but Shaika at this point. Himika then does try to explain her logic by saying, another part of me sees what happened back then in that way, but it's still quite a feat to determine which event from your past would cause such a personality shift. Did you really not have any other traumatic or character-defining moments in the last 10 years besides some kids gossiping behind your back? Really? After Himika gives us the first instance of resistance, she iterates that she thinks Shaika is not only lying to her, but to herself about not wanting to trust others. Because, well, they are from the same person, so they probably have a good idea on how each other might be thinking. Shaika then asks why Himika is being so adamant about making everyone get along, and trust one another. And Himika just hits her with the plain and simple, Karen Machihashi loves herself. And well, they are all Karen Machihashi. And I love the little side comment that there are others she loves almost as much, emphasis on the almost. But after that attempt of a heart-to-heart, old habits die hard as Shaika is still refusing to accept others and wishes to be left alone and walks out of the room, Himika ponders how she's going to explain to you how she took the mantle at confronting Shaika. By profusely apologizing, of course. Which turns out to be no big deal as Yu isn't even upset, and also admits he forgot about the whole house thing as well. We're only 5 chapters in and the main characters are already sharing one brain cell. Himika then wants to give Yu a bit of a heads up regarding Shaika, but Yu decides he doesn't want to get any pointers on how to talk to her, and will just do it on his own accord. But before he goes off to gather yet another girlfriend for his harem, he thanks Himika for not keeping any secrets from him, with some lovey head pats, which causes Galka to get a wee bit jealous, but that's immediately rectified. Look how happy Himika is though. Also, not keeping secrets? Actual healthy relationship examples in a rom-com set in high school?
Inconceivable!
Yu runs off to find Shaika and confronts her in the hallway and apologizes for his behavior, but doesn't wish to make a spectacle of it in public knowing that would only intimidate her more. And Yu already failed that notion by yelling out to her in the hallway. Great job. So he says to meet him at the park on the hill. I swear this park is becoming the rooftop from 100 Girlfriends. Or maybe the Hanazono Mansion. Shaika does show up at the park to hear Yu out and they get to talking. Yu reflects on how he's been acting towards Shaika and apologizes for his actions. This is some great insight from Yu because, yeah, he did jump the gun on trying to interact with her, and it's perfectly encapsulated in this line here where he says, "Already heard so much about you, but I never told you anything about me." Basically, he assumed he would automatically know all about Karen's because of spending the past few days with the others, without taking into consideration how Shaika might be different from the others. So he admits to jumping the gun and making assumptions, which is some great self-reflecting, especially for a teenage boy. And a teenage boy in a rom-com manga of all things. I'm way too used to main characters being dense as a neutron star. Then out of a proclamation of love, I guess, Yu decides to shout to the heavens his biggest regret in his life, that he forgot to ask for any kind of contact info from Karen before she left. Then a retelling of the previous 4 chapters, and on to the 5th. Then decides to drop the truth bomb in the middle of all this yelling that, after talking to her, she's actually kind of annoying for avoiding him and running away. Yo, Yu is like the entirety of the base department right now. Other rom-com main characters, take notes please. But despite all that, he declares that he loves her all the same. Her sheepishness, her glasses, her bare ears that I don't make any sense of in her design, and her cute sleeves? Okay, whatever rocks your boat, Yu. After breaking the law of Penal Code 415 of intentionally creating loud and unreasonable noise in the neighborhood, Yu and Shaika finally decide to have their heart-to-heart. Shaika talks about the hurtful words he said the previous day about how she's nothing like she used to be. And Yu, being the base main character that he is, reiterates that there are now more and different things to love about a Karen Machihashi as there was back then, which transitions to one of my personal favorite panels of some passerbys. And being a 32-year-old man who mainly reads rom-com manga, this is my reaction to most of them. Yu then thanks Shaika for hearing him out with his confession and explanation. But honestly, dude, with how much you were shouting, it was hard not to hear you. Then asks Shaika for her response and thoughts on the whole matter. And after a couple of flashbacks to what Himika said, Shaika tries to speak her mind and only lets out some exasperated gasps of air like to which Shaika runs and grabs a full human-sized teddy bear costume that she apparently keeps on her person at all times just in case of some character development level conversations with another person. She admits to Yu that she finds it easier to talk to her stuffed animals than anything else, so dressing Yu up this way is the only way to get a proper conversation out of her. I can relate though. I can only express my true feelings while talking to my Makoto Nijima body pillow. I mean, licensed therapists. Of course. She confides in Yu about her trauma of being the victim of schoolyard gossiping and what that did to her self-esteem and trust in people. But she is making strides in improvement by admitting that she can't continue on like this and must get better, especially now that she's witnessed other versions of herself doing better. No motivation is quite like seeing literal other versions of yourself doing better at life than you. Yu tries to comfort her saying that she's cute just the way she is, and tries to compliment her on things like her puppeteering, but it falls on deaf ears as Shaika's inability to trust anything that comes out of the mouths of people is too strong. Yu then gives a comforting speech reaffirming her that he likes the changes this Karen went through, and doesn't think of her any less. Flustered and not knowing what to do with herself in this situation, Shaika suddenly rips the bear mask off of Yu to talk to him directly, only admitting that she can't trust his love or really anything at all, but that she wants to trust Yu. A proclamation to change and get better so she can trust people again, and asks that they continue spending time together, which Yu happily agrees. Then on to the next morning where Yu meets up with all the Karens and Shaika takes her first step forward to changing and greets Yu, albeit through the bear. Hey, progress is progress. Baby steps. This is definitely a chapter where we see the strengths of the writing of Furukawa, being able to juggle a main character who learns from his mistakes and apologizes for his ignorance in the same chapter, as well as adding on top of that a dynamic character who struggles with insecurity. Quite the contrast to what we had with the first 2 Karens. Not to say that they are bad in any kind of way, but they now come off as a little one note in comparison to Shaika. Seeing just how different a Karen can be now makes me really excited and curious what the author has in store for the other Karens. They started us off easy with Himika and Galka thinking we're just getting another quirky rom-com, and then decided no, we needed some feels in this series as well. What I also find interesting about this conclusion is the charms specify that a Karen must accept Yu's feelings, but this conclusion doesn't feel like an acceptance. Nor does the ending feel like someone who is now dating compared to what Yu has with Himika and Galka. Oh well, I guess semantics. Maybe we'll get more of an explanation on their status in the next chapter. Next chapter will be interesting to see if they decide to introduce another Karen, or if they are going to stew on these four for a minute, particularly Shaika. I know earlier I guessed the schedule introducing more Karens every other chapter, but now we have Shaika and we don't even have her nickname, and now needing to develop her interacting with you and the other Karens more. So it may be a while, but I will be here to cover it all. I know this video is super late and I do apologize. That break week with 100 Girlfriends was also much needed on my end too for all the videos. On the plus side, we don't have to wait too long for this month's chapter for some answers, and I'll hopefully get that video out sooner than I did this one. Hope you all enjoyed, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for future updates, and I will see you all on the next video.